welcome to today's video on the book review series, where we will be diving into the pages of Globalization and Its Discontent by Joseph A. Stiglitz. I am Gracelynn, accompanied by my teammates Kelvin, Cornelita, and Carrisa from BBA IPMI Business School. This book has been making waves in the economy and business world, and we are excited to share our thoughts and opinions with you all on why you should read this book. In this review, we will be discussing the author, strengths, weaknesses, and purposes of the book. Whether you have already read it or you are curious about picking it up, this video will provide valuable insight and perspective. So, without further ado, let's jump right in. This is our agenda for today. So, let's start with the first part, talking about the author. The author of this book is Joseph A. Stiglitz. He is an American economist and a professor at Columbia University that focuses on macroeconomics. He is also the co-chair of the high-level expert group on the measurement of economic performance and social progress at the OECD and was awarded the Nobel Memorial Prize in Economic Science in 2001 for laying the foundation for the theory of markets with asymmetric information. In addition, the author is also a former senior vice president and chief economist at the World Bank.
So here, what the book proposes. The first is that the dark side of globalization. The book lays out the controversial side and offers glorification of globalization. While actually this book is an updated version of the author's previous work titled The Globalization and Its Discontents, which was released in 2002. And both books have the same idea that covers the dissatisfaction with globalization from developing countries to international financial institutions and developed countries with their unfair and undemocratic policies. And apart from that, this book covers a new dimension of globalization and the political movement from developed countries that would endanger globalization. And the second is that ways to reform the globalization. So the author here identifies and analyzes what could have been wrong from all the events that occurred, and then provide a practical way to solve the issue arising from globalization toward what factor should be prioritized to push globalization to be fair. Now we're talking about the target audience, and due to the fame of this controversial book with much praises and critics, with all the information and excellent material given, we believe that it will attract for sure students and scholars, economists, policymakers, and could be general readers who are interested in understanding the economic, social, and political consequences of globalization, and for anyone that are interested in the future of the global economy.
There are three strands of the book. First case study approach. The author mentioned a few cases that can be used for comparison, whether in the old version of the book or the newest version during the Trump era, that helps the reader to understand and give more flexibility for the readers to learn and explore more towards the related topics. Second, structured content are well structured on how the division of each chapter is connected from the issue of globalization to how we could solve it by focusing the prioritizing on the most important factors to consider. And third, well researched. The book is written based on the author's experience working in the World Bank and through research from historical events of the global economy. Three weaknesses from the book. First, complicated wordings. The vocabulary being used is advanced and does not mention the economic terms that may struggle readers that are not used to the related topics. Second, repetitive explanation. Many examples or sentences are repeated over and over across the book in unnecessarily condition. And third, over-complaining. The author complains too much on the issue that making it the readers difficult to take a position and have their own judgment. There are three main objectives from the author, which are persuade, inform, and educate. The author aims to persuade and inform the readers on the importance of reforming globalization by giving out important historical events that arise from the issue of globalization. The author also educates the readers on how we could govern globalization to reach equitable and sustainable policies.
Next, we will discuss 4 key points that the author highlights in this book as a summary. First of all,
The author believes that globalization doesn't work because there is no global governance to govern the countries around the world fairly when they are interdependent with each other. Because of the developed countries that push unfair trade agreements with the developing countries as they become more selfish for themselves, while on the other hand, the international financial institutions such as IMF and WTO tend to side with the developed countries for their financial and also policy interests. The IMF put high pressure on the money that they lend for the developing countries, which puts the developing countries in a debt loop and also in their control. The IMF also forced their liberalization policies to be one fits all at a quick pace without considering the country's differences which contribute to the crisis. The all things that they proposed were right if it's in an advanced country where many important factors that they ignore are developed well, but developing countries are different, for example, education. And given so, the IMF already failed at the first step when making a strategy. And for the next key points, the author questioned the cause of the movement of capital, people, and knowledge as the result of globalization, which could decrease the comparative advantage of a country. And the people with the same skills could earn different wages in different countries and lead people from low wages countries to move to the countries with high wages. And there's also an income premium that associated with the citizenship and the fact that it is easy for the people to move around across borders. They are easily exploited, driving down their wages and working conditions and also their living standards. Then the author also argues that the protectionist policies that being pursued by the Trump administration and other governments are not the solution to the global to the problems that caused by the globalization. And protectionist policies not only harm the global economy but also do not address the underlying problems that led to the rise of protectionism in the first place. He suggested that a better approach would be to address the concerns of those who have been left behind by the globalization and to work towards the more inclusive and equitable global economy. He also believes that the problems with globalization and the rise of protectionism are due to a failure of global governance. And as a result, the pursuit of deglobalization and protectionism to fulfill politicians or the richest own benefit is a new form of protectionism that will ultimately harm the world economy. Lastly, the author also suggests that the globalization needs a new approach that considers the interests of all individuals and prioritizes the environment, promoting democracy and also the fair trade. He proposes changes to voting rights within the international institution to ensure the voices of developing countries are heard. And increasing transparency within the institution is also necessary for making them more responsive to the needs of the poor, environment, and wider political and social concerns. The author also suggests the reforms of the IMF, World Bank, and WTO to address the root causes of the global economic instability and promote the equitable prosperity between the countries. And moreover, the author also proposes 10 principles for reforming globalization that are informed by his deep understanding of economic theory and his extensive experience of working with policymakers around the world.
That's everything about the book. We heartily recommend the book because it offers a fresh perspective on globalization through the use of actual cases, a thorough analysis of why globalization hasn't been pushed fairly, and a profound understanding of how international financial institutions and policymakers should handle globalization. However, for individuals who are unfamiliar with the vocabulary and associated themes of economics, it could be challenging. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you find this video helpful, and we are glad to be sharing with you.